This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. We have seen an explosion in our listenership these last couple of weeks. We've got more and more fans of the podcast, and they've been blowing up our downloads and our social media. We love seeing the increased traffic and engagement. And so just wanted to start this episode with a big thank you to everyone who's listening and who's writing in on our social media platforms. And we want to encourage you to continue to do that. You know, this podcast is not here to make money. Some podcasts make money. This one doesn't. It's not a business, even though if you hear this and it inspires you to work with me, that's terrific. But this is all about sharing our experiences and sharing our knowledge to talk shop with those of us who are in the public relations and news business, and to perhaps inspire and educate businesses and people who might be thinking about using PR to help tell their story. So we are always eager to hear your suggestions on how we can grow the podcast. We definitely want you to DM us if you have a story you want to tell, or if you want to come on the podcast and be a guest. Like we say, you know, there are 52 weeks in a year. We have 52 guests every year. You can be one of them, and everyone's got a story to tell. So please continue to offer your insights and suggestions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the PR Podcast, and let us know if you'd like to come on for a conversation. Speaking of guests, we have a very special one this week, so let's get right to it. Dr. Christina Johns is a pediatric urgent care physician and the senior medical advisor at PM Pediatrics, which is the nation's largest pediatric urgent care provider with more than 60 locations across the country. In addition to being an earned media rock star, she's also the host of a weekly Instagram chat on Thursday nights, where she and her fellow physicians talk about current events in medicine and pediatrics. Christina, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jody. It's really an honor to be here.
It's great to have you here. And full disclosure, you and I have been working together for the last 3 years to promote PM Pediatrics. You've been my client. And that's the main reason I wanted to have you on here, is to get the perspective of a client who has been engaged with a PR professional and a PR program, to get their to get your feedback, right, on what it is to be a client working with a PR pro. You also have a terrific understanding of how the media works. You are not a PR or a news native by someone who's unfamiliar with how media and news works, which is also terrific. So I think your perspectives might be really helpful for some of the people who are listening who might be considering PR.
Right.
But for starters, let's just hear about what you do. You are an incredibly accomplished person.
You are kind to say that. I am, as you said, I'm the senior medical advisor for PM Pediatrics, which means that I am the spokesperson and the face of the company. So I am responsible for all of the external communications that happen at PM Pediatrics. My other hat is that I'm the vice president of communications. And so I do some internal comms as well. And I think that, Jody, I've leaned into you and your expertise on that as well. So I think that the potential for topics to cover and expertise to be tapped into when you are working with a PR professional is really limitless. And I think you and I are a fabulous case study that really illustrates that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. You are also, let's give you full credit, you are a frontline worker. You have been in the PM Pediatrics offices in your area, taking care of patients throughout this entire COVID crisis.
That's correct.
So you've got a lot of balls in the air.
Right. Never a dull moment, as they say.
Not enough hours in the day. Right. Exactly. But let's talk a little bit about the communications piece of what you do. And I'm sure a lot of the topics come out of the frontline work that you do, the medical work that you do.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how I guess the philosophy behind communicating information to eager audiences, whether that's internal or external. Can we talk about the philosophy of communications perhaps first, what you want to tell people?
Sure. I think that overall, it is really taking a snapshot of what, for example, what I do, what I am seeing, and what I have seen, certainly in this pandemic, on the front lines, and being able to put that to scale and say, all right, what lesson did I learn from taking care of this patient today? Or what did I teach this patient for how to take care of themselves at home? And how can I draw that up on a macro level and scale that up, but make it understandable and digestible so that it is helpful to other people and, in fact, may prevent them from needing to come and see me the next time.
I think it's really terrific the way you describe that as making information digestible. Some people might say dumb it down, but you don't dumb things down for people. You talk really straight with people about medical care, about what you're seeing out there, and delivering information to parents specifically, who can then take that information back and use it with their own children, their own families.
Well, that's right. I don't underestimate the intelligence of my patients, and as well as the fact that, hey, they are exposed to just as many online resources and information as I am. And so I need to be very cognizant of that and need to be able to curate and filter that information to the best of my ability in a way that gives them credit for the homework that they're doing too.
So when it comes to getting that information out, what ways do you think are most effective? You use lots of different platforms, including earned media, social. You do internal comms with your company, so there's a degree, I would imagine, of sort of emailing the company, sharing information. What in your mind is the best way to disseminate that kind of important information?
I think it really depends on the audience. I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. And this is where, again, I think you and I have huddled together, and I tap into your expertise in terms of helping to guide that. And where are we going to find this particular audience? I think that obviously the easy stuff is from a public external communication standpoint is social media. Most people are on one of the platforms. And so having access there and a forum in which to deliver your message again, in a snackable, digestible way is, I think, an easy way to do it that is cost effective, that has potential to reach a lot of people. Again, if you know your audience and what your message is, and understanding that the way that you package that message may be different on the various platforms.
So when we started working together about 3 years ago, um, we had a sort of a get to know you period, right? Had you worked with a PR consultant before that? I forget.
No, never had before.
Okay, so this was our maiden flight together.
Indeed.
So what did you have an expectation at that time when you were getting into working with a PR professional? I know you had an internal person who did some PR for you. She was very, very good. Um, but never an external consultant. So did you have an expectation at that point, or?
I had done a fair amount of media on my own. So I knew a little bit of the climate, and I knew that, okay, this person is going to connect me. I have the ideas, I've got the content, I think I have the delivery. And so what I don't have is the right connection or the strategy behind how to get my message out there. And so I think that on some sort of macro level, I had that understanding that that was going to be ultimately the plan and the goal. But the details of which I don't think that I really understood, or the nature and the dynamic nature of how that relationship happens, was something that I learned as I go.
Okay. And so in terms of the road that we traveled together,
Yeah.
in making those opportunities a reality, tell me a little bit about how that has evolved from your perspective, from a client perspective. Um, have certain opportunities been what you thought they were going to be? I'm asking this in a really awkward way, and I'm being a very, very bad questioner right now. What I'm trying to get at is, let's say, someone may say, hey, we really want to be on this outlet.
Right.
When you were on that particular outlet, did it get the feedback for you that you expected it to? Or if it didn't, how was it different?
I think I think definitely. I think that, for example, doing some earned media on radio. I think news radio. For me, that was the perfect connection. I think how it evolved as we started to work together more. I think you knew my perspective, my tone of voice, my take on things, and so I think that really allowed us to have a very seamless, effortless relationship where you could read the room for me, I think, in a way that was very easy and spot on correct, so that when those connections were made, like for example on news radio, I knew that I wanted to for sure do some hard hitting, real hard news stories and conversation, and you knew that too, and so you were able to make that happen in a way that was really seamless, that didn't require a lot of explanation from me.
Thank you. I think too that so much of medical PR is or can be reactive. In other words, what's the story of the day? Find the medical expert to fit in the slot, right?
Right.
And something that you and I think have done rather effectively is defining new topics that you've wanted to talk about, and that can really be a challenge. Um, Tell me a little bit about the importance of that you think how important it is you think it is to for a medical
Mhm.
professional like yourself, a physician like yourself, to be defining new topics or important topics as opposed to reacting to things, sort of the role of the doctor in media, if you will.
Yeah, I think it is. There's obviously, and you and I agree. There's a place for both. Obviously, you want to make sure that when some kind of a science or health story breaks, that there is an appropriately qualified medical professional to comment on it. But I think additionally, there is golly so many years of training that I went through to get where I am, and so being able to filter out what some of the really relevant and topical things that somebody who didn't go to medical school might benefit from knowing, and being able to troubleshoot that, I think is important, number one. So identifying those topics. I think where the relationship and the connection takes place for a PR professional is being able to talk that out and to make sure that it isn't something that, oh, well, Dr. Johns thinks that that's medically interesting, but how do we make that relevant for somebody who didn't go to medical school? And I think that that's where the crossroads is, I think, for us, that we really put together well and said, there were plenty of times, I think, when I brought stuff up and you'd be like, yeah, you know, sure, really interesting, but probably isn't necessarily going to be the big hook
Yeah.
for the people at 5 p.m. But there were plenty of times when I would say something offhanded and you'd be like, hey, wait, let's pause for a minute. I think that this might have some gravitas. And those were the times that we took our ideas, we put it together, and ran with it, and were successful. And I think that is that proactive piece that really is an enormous service to teaching the masses, as it were, through media.
Yeah, I got to give you a lot of credit for bringing ideas to the table, because I frequently say to clients, I'm like the carpenter. I can build you the house, but you got to bring me the wood.
Yeah.
You got to bring me the lumber. That said, I got to give you a lot of credit for also knowing and really having an intuition for is what is going to be interesting to parents, what is going to be interesting to media. And you're not there to know what's going to be interesting to a producer, but you do have that knack of understanding what's going to be interesting to parents. And I think that's the needle that we've threaded together,
Yeah.
is putting our finger on those topics. Because
Right.
if it's going to be interesting, and that's something else that I always urge to keep clients to keep in mind, is that you're not just talking to the producer or the reporter, you're talking to their audience.
Right.
Their audience is coming there to get the information that they expect to get. So give them that, and talk to their audience.
That's right.
Um,
I think it also helps for us, you and I are both parents. And so we could also put that hat on as we were thinking specifically about pediatric medicine.
There have been many times where we've gone down total rabbit holes about our kids. We're
That's
talking
right.
about business, and all of a sudden, 20 minutes later, we're sharing stories about little league and soccer and everything, school and everything else. Um,
Exactly right.
let's just take a pause there, a moment to talk about the kids, because you're a pediatrician, about how challenging this past year has been
Yeah.
for kids, for their parents. Do you have any advice for parents or for kids? We've walked this road now for coming up on 12 months,
Yeah.
related to COVID and all the changes out in the world. What have you seen, um, and sort of what's the advice for moving forward?
Yeah, I really think that the biggest thing that I say to parents and kids is give yourself a little grace. There's so much pressure, pre-pandemic, so much pressure to be the perfect parent and to, have your kid in thousands of activities by the time they're age 3, and all of the rat race that we are all on to combine this perfect family life with work and personal time and creating these, raising these wonderful children. And then all of a sudden it came to a screeching halt, and people almost are reeling and don't know what to do, adjusting to this new way of education and this new way of life. And so I know that there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of unknown. And so this is where I say to people, give yourself some grace right now, and be able to live in the space where things aren't going to be exactly as you thought they might be, and pause there and think about what works and what doesn't in the confines of the new parameters. And I think, when you take a little bit of the pressure off of trying to compare the current climate to what we were used to before, I think that is a little bit of a game changer. And I think that it ratchets down some of that stress a little bit, even though it's a tricky time.
Are we going back? Are we going back to pre-pandemic days, or do we have a new way of living now?
I think that there's going to be a little bit of both. I think that we will certainly have a new way. I think we will work our way back to pre-pandemic. But I think that some things are never going to be the same. Are we ever going to shake hands again? Are we ever, during flu season or winter respiratory virus season, are we ever going to not wear masks? And in the medical setting, I'm not sure that we're ever gonna go back there. But do I think that we will get back to sporting events, and will we get back to stores open and being able to gather? I do indeed.
Let's throttle back to public relations and sort of how that has helped you spread the word about, all the terrific advice that you give. And we want to plug the Instagram chat, which is now migrated to Facebook too, right? And you have a third person on there on
We
your Facebook chat. So let's plug that real quick first.
Oh gosh, yeah, that sure is fun. Thursday nights, I'm either on my Facebook channel or Instagram at 9:30 at night, after all parents have put their kids to bed and are winding down for the night. We have a conversation where we review, myself and a couple of guests, kind of depending on the availability and the topic. We talk through the highlights of what has happened in the week, and what has been really fun is there's a real regular crew on now. It's a bunch of science lovers who believe in fighting the good fight, and making sure that peer-reviewed, citation please type of science is getting amplified. And so that's been a really fun experience that wide open for anybody who wants to join.
And that's a great call out too, to the different ways that you're able to get your message out, whether it's social media, what we refer to as owned content, or whether it's back to the traditional earned media.
Right.
What is your sense of all of those channels, and sort of how it has helped you spread your word, and also how it's helped you increase visibility, recognition, and appreciation for you, for your work, for PM Pediatrics work, and for the brand?
So I think it's a really holistic view. And I think you and I have sort of taken that approach when we worked together kind of from the beginning, that we want to get out there and be seen in earned media and hard news, and in local stuff, and in national stuff, and on digital. I think that the hard hitting commentary that establishes credibility. And I think that's a very, very important thing, to be able to have a trusted voice. I think you and I have really first wanted to establish that a lot. But I think that the visibility piece, and the getting in on some of those owned channels and on social, is where people have a glimpse of who I am, not just as a physician in delivering the science and the medicine and the facts and the evidence, but also kind of my style, and how I do it, and what I can laugh about, and what are the struggles that I face on my own journey. And I think that relatability element, combined with the credibility element, is really the right combination and the right recipe to grow, and to be a trusted resource for not only editors and for producers and news directors, but for parents and people sitting in their living room.
It is very clear to me from my chair that people in the media trust you greatly, because we've developed some relationships where our phone just naturally rings.
Yeah.
People, need a pediatrician to talk about a particular topic, or they get a pitch from me that says, "Hey, we've got Dr. Christina who can talk about this." There are a handful of outlets that just jump all over it, every single time, and I think that comes out of what you bring to them. You bring that credibility. You bring that insightful, knowledgeable, personable approach to the information that you're sharing with them, and that they're sharing with their audience. So I think that's probably the greatest. The greatest thing that a PR person can do for their client is to get them to a place where their phone's just ringing on its own, and, and the PR person doesn't have to do anything.
I like it. I like it. Well, but I think, I do think that really is where the partnership, right? I think that the other half of it is, the fact that you know what you're talking about, and that you are dependable and heavy hitting too. And I think that that's the goal.
I appreciate that greatly. And this has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you indulging me talking a little bit about the work that we've done over the past couple of years. We're going to move into our rapid fire question segment of our podcast here. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio, and we ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. So like one or two word answers here, and we'll see what these provoke. So let's begin.
I'm ready.
Rapid fire question number one, your favorite news source?
My favorite news source is probably NBC News.
Your favorite social media platform?
Oh, golly.
That's a tough one.
I love the Twitter. What can I say? I love the Twitter.
Me too, actually, I do. Rapid fire question number three, coffee or alcohol?
Depends on the time of day.
Yeah. Rapid fire question number four, your favorite on the run food? This is going to be a good one for a physician.
Chick-fil-A.
Ooh. Drive through or walk in?
Always can do a drive through anytime.
All right, rapid fire question number five. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Fit and healthy.
You already are. You nailed it. All right, and here's the bonus rapid fire question, which we've never asked before on the podcast, but I asked this because I know you have one. Your favorite superhero?
My favorite superhero is Wonder Woman. I am a Gal Gadot groupie if there ever was one.
We are closet. I don't know about closet, but we are superhero geeks.
We
have
sure
shared
are.
plenty of conversations about that, as much as we have about the work that we do together.
Yeah, between that and Stargirl, that's a tough call, but I had to pick one, so I'm picking Gal for today.
There you go. Stargirl was awesome. Well, Christina, this has been a great conversation, and it's a really easy one too, because we've worked so well together these last few years, and I really appreciate you sharing some time with us. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Sure. So I can be found on the Instagram at Dear Dr. Christina, and on the Facebook at Dr. Christina Johns. Twitter, I'm at DRC Johns, and my website is deardrchristina.com. So come join the conversation.
Well, thank you, Dr. Christina. We really appreciate it, and again, thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful working with you. This has really been a joy.
The pleasure has been mine, Jody.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher and on all the socials, and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.